is Friday afternoon, so I have this camera in my son's room, and I'm just looking at some of the Legos that he built today. Some sort of boat, I assume, with maybe guns or something. Hey Avery, how are you doing? So, we're just kind of chilling out, waiting for people to join. I usually give a few minutes for this thing to kind of circulate around, let everybody know we're here, get everybody to log in to. Very good, Avery. Glad that you're doing well. It is Friday, as I mentioned. Really, doing these things is kind of the only way I can keep up with what day it is, because it kind of reminds me of what day it is. Because it's all kind of blended together, and I hope that you all are doing well and staying safe and doing the best that you can at home with your friends and hopefully, some of y'all I know hang out with each other. I guess friends is okay, and family. So today, for our time, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit. We've been doing a recent series about what happens after Jesus is raised from the dead in the Gospels, because we just got through with Easter, and we're now in the Easter season, kind of leading up to Pentecost, which we'll talk about some when that Sunday comes, more toward the end of May, but wanted to sort of spend some time in these stories about what happens afterwards, because there are a lot of stories in the Gospel about what happened afterwards, and I think there's some interesting stuff in there. So we've gone through Matthew, Mark, Luke. Boy, that iPad gives me a super creepy look. Wow. Okay. I feel like it's like I'm trying to tell a scary story around a campfire or something with that. That's kind of crazy. So, but we are reading. Hold on, maybe I turn down the brightness on that. Good grief. It's like crazy bright. Okay. So we're in John 21, and that's why I have my iPad, because I got my Bible app on it. So we're in John 21. And starting in verse 1. So this is a story about the disciples and Jesus appearing to them again. So if you got your Bible, pull it out, turn to John 21, and let's look at this. So it says, verse 1, later Jesus himself appeared again to his disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, and this is how it happened. Thanks for warning us. You're about to go there. So Simon Peter, Thomas, called Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, Zebedee's sons, and 2 other disciples were together. And Simon Peter told them, I'm going fishing. And they said, we'll go with you, as you do. So they set out in a boat, but throughout the night they caught nothing. And early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples didn't realize it was Jesus. So Jesus called to them, children, have you caught anything to eat? And they answered him, no. And he said, cast your net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they did, and there were so many fish that they couldn't haul in the net. Then the disciple who Jesus loved said to Peter, it's the Lord. And when Simon Peter heard it was the Lord, he wrapped his coat around himself, for he was naked. It's a weird way to go fishing. And jumped into the water. And the other disciples followed in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they weren't far from shore, only about 100 yards. And then when they landed, they saw a fire there with fish on it and some bread. And Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish that you've caught. So Simon Peter got up and pulled the net to shore. It was full of fish, 153 of them. It's a very specific number there. But the net hadn't torn, even with so many fish. So Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. And none of the disciples could bring themselves to ask him, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. So Jesus came, took the bread, and gave it to them. And he did the same with the fish. And this was the 3rd time that Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. So if you would, please pray with me. God, we are thankful for your word and for this time that we can study it briefly and kind of take a break from our day to focus on you. I pray that you will open our hearts to your word and help us to see what you have to say to us today. Amen. So this story is kind of interesting for a few reasons. First off, I think it was kind of crazy that Jesus called them children, but I guess they kind of were to him. He had cared for them, loved them through his whole life, and kind of probably felt of them that way. And they didn't take offense to it. They just said, okay, yeah, we're tired of trying to catch these fish. I don't know if they were just bored. At that point, they didn't care. So they catch all these fish, and Jesus brings them to shore and just wants them to have breakfast with him. And what I kind of get from this is that we tend to think of that God only really cares about, our spiritual needs. And I think that in general, when it comes to whether we're happy or whether we grow, that God cares more about whether we grow than whether we're happy. And I think that's a lot because in America, we tend to get into this thing of like these prosperity gospel guys that, try to tell you, if you just pray hard enough, you're going to get what you need. And it becomes really a lot about our own happiness. But I think here in this passage, we do see that while I don't think God's trying to shower gold on us or anything like that, or give us every little thing that we want, that Jesus wants them to come have breakfast with him. He wants them to be around him. He cares for his friends, and he wants to care for our physical needs. I'm sure he knew that these guys were tired. They've been out all night fishing, and they hadn't caught anything, and then they finally catch something, and it's this huge amount of fish. So they've worked hard. It has been an all-nighter studying for that test, like that kind of situation. These guys have been in this all night long and trying to catch these fish, and they're tired. And Jesus knows that they need rest and that they need to eat and that they need to be refreshed. And I think this is really important for us to grasp onto in this time, especially more than maybe any other, when we're all sort of stressed and we're all kind of tired of being home and we're tired and anxious about everything, is that it's okay to take care of our physical needs. It's okay to take care of that we need rest, that we need sleep, that we need to eat, that we need good nutrition, all those things. We need exercise, because Jesus takes care of their needs in this situation by just hanging out with them and having breakfast. And later in the chapter, there is a deep spiritual conversation, but before we can get there, we've got to have those needs met. And so I pray that you will see this as a time that God may be telling you that you need to take care of yourself in some ways. Maybe there are some physical needs that you've been delaying because maybe you're trying to help family who's struggling in this time, or you're just not sleeping well because our schedules are all weird and we sleep till 3 p.m. and stay up till 3 a.m. and we aren't necessarily taking care of ourselves. That really what he's doing there here is asking us to take care of ourselves, and that God cares about that. And there's an interesting parallel with this. If you notice that there's bread and fish. And if you remember the last time in the Bible that Jesus dealt with bread and fish, it was the feeding of the 5,000, this big miracle of taking care of the physical needs of people. So I think Jesus cares about that with us, and we should also care about that with others. When we are being Christ to others, when we are loving others and helping others in whatever way that is, we are called to care for their physical needs too. It's not just about, trying to help all the mental things they're dealing with, or the emotional things they're dealing with, or the spiritual things they're dealing with, but we've got to help people's physical needs too. Because I don't know if you guys have ever seen in school this thing called Maslow's hierarchy. It's this pyramid thing that shows you all the needs of humanity. And it starts with the basic need of security and food and shelter. And while most of us probably as teens, you don't really think about all that stuff too much, maybe you have thought about it some because you can see what your family's going through, or you see what people on the news are going through, and you understand that there's some anxiety with this right now. And it's hard to get up to that level of thinking about spiritual things when we're just trying to survive. And I know that. And here in this passage, we see that Jesus knows that because he takes care of the disciples. He feeds them breakfast. He hangs out with them as a friend. And he sort of calls back to this miracle that he previously did with bread and fish to feed people. And so I just pray that this will encourage you today, that it will help you to see and believe that God really cares about your needs and understands that we are human. We need our physical needs to be met in terms of food and shelter and all those things. And he knows that. And he cares for us, and he wants the best for us. So I pray that as you're struggling to deal with these times, that you will understand that God cares about that, and he wants to provide that for you. So that's it for today. It's pretty short and sweet. Thank you for joining, Avery. I hope you have a great day. All of you that are going to see this later on Instagram Live, hope that you're having an awesome day. Once again, love you guys. Miss y'all a ton. In case you didn't see, Speaking of an announcement that I want to make, at this point, church is going to remain closed until at least June. So over the month of May, we're going to continue to try to do these sessions on Instagram. We're going to keep doing some things on Zoom. We're going to keep doing some game times, trying to do some stuff to keep us all together. And so I pray that you will try to attend some of those things. I know sometimes internet's sketchy around here in Central Texas, but I hope that you can attend what you can and be involved, because we want to try to stay in touch with you and take care of you. We also want to be sure and remember a couple of requests for prayer in our youth group. Coach Balamos is still recovering, and I know some of you youth are very close to him, so we want to pray for him. And we also want to remember the Walworth family with the loss of Kathy this week. It's a very tragic thing, and even more so in this time where we can't be together and support that family, and Olivia in particular in our group. So I want to mention them specifically. Be sure and pray for them. Keep them in your heart and mind, and again, hope to see you all soon. I will talk to you later. And if you haven't, I had a post. Well, actually, it's probably down now already because it only lasts 24 hours. Never mind. The one thing I will know, if there's anything you want us to study, if there's some new stuff you want us to talk about, whatever your needs might be in this time, be sure and let me know. I am trying to be here for you as best I can. I have a phone. Most of y'all have my phone number, or you can contact me, message me on Instagram, and I will be happy to answer you back. We hope that we can meet whatever needs that you have from us at this time. So once again, thanks everyone. Love all of you. We will talk to you soon.